Good morning. How's everybody today? Well, if you notice, there's a lot of people missing. We have about 60 to 70 people at the singles retreat, which is awesome. But you know, there always tends to be a few glitches along the way. You know, this morning about 7 a.m. I got a call. You know, it always makes you nervous when you get those calls Sunday morning. So it was Theo, and he says, "Bro, I got bad news." I'm like, "What's up? What's up?" And he says, "I'm in a lot of pain." And actually, he went to the ER this morning. Now, if you don't know this, Theo is in charge of the sound, right? And he says, but not only that, all right, Henry's sick. He's not going to be there today. No. Now, Henry works the sound. And he said, Cordero is in Wisconsin at the retreat. What do we do? And I'm like, well, good luck with that. Let me know what you come up. Well, we have Nana back there. Nana filled the gap for us. So if there's any glitches, have mercy. Have mercy. Of course, Anthony is in Syracuse looking for a home as they'll be moving in a few weeks. And it's great to have the Latin group up here with us. Very always exciting to have you with us. Now, I heard there's a game on today. Is that accurate? You know, it's bad when they wear bear stuff to church. So, amen. Let's not go there, though. Let's stop right there. In the last few weeks, I kind of stirred the pot. All right, what does that mean? You know, I threw out a few announcements there. Anthony and Maria are going to be going to Syracuse, and Barb and I are going to be going to Queens. All right, we're going to be planning a church there and grabbing a boatload of you. And like I said last week, there's a lot of emotion going on here. People are scared, and what's going to happen? They're all going to die, kind of thing. People are excited, fired up. People are mixed emotion. They're, you know, what does this mean? Kind of thing. People and the others don't know what's going on. But the question is, last week, how did you respond when you heard the call? What was your response? All right, this is the next step. All right, it goes right along. Title lesson is called Taking Ownership. We're going to have a lot of people leaving, right? Somebody's got to fill in the gap, but not only do they fill in the gap, they've got to take ownership for what they do. Now, in the world, people play the blame game. All right, people don't want to take ownership. They don't like responsibility. It's my parents' fault. Have you heard that one before? It's the government's fault. Society's fault. Our teacher. Our boss. Our coworker. Our husband. The wife. The kids. Now the challenge is, unless we take responsibility, we can't change anything. Now, interesting enough is when things go good, it's the opposite. It's all me. Yeah, it turned out great at work. Yeah, that was me. Well, let's share the glory a little bit here. My kids, that was my side of the family. That's how that works. If it goes bad, it's their side of the family, right? But this is about character. Come on. This is about maturity. How do you respond towards your leadership? And we all lead some capacity in some way. This is about influence. When you walk in the room, all right, does the atmosphere get better or worse? All right. And see, we can take responsibility for that. We can make some decisions there to change. Somehow they say that you can, people will remember more how they felt around you than what you say. You know, I like to be around Barb. I don't know why, but I just like to be around her. Or do people avoid you? Well, let's look at an example. Exodus chapter 3. And we're going to look at Moses. And God worked on Moses to try to get him to take responsibility.
Come on, bro. Come on, Jay. Come on.
Yeah, bring it, bro.
Let's go, bro.
Now, little background here. The Jews ended up moving to Egypt because of a famine that happened 400 years before this. And they decided to stay there, take root. 400 years later, now they're about 1.5 million people. And now they've become slaves. And they've been crying out to God in their misery. God hears them. And he says, I got to do something about it. All right, let's read. Exodus chapter 3, starting verse 5. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, God of Jacob. At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I've heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I'm concerned about their suffering. So I've come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. All right, let's just stop there. All right, now imagine you're Moses. All right, what are you doing? All right, you're a shepherd. You've had a very cush life, somewhat cush, for what, 40 years after you've left Egypt. Now, he knows what it's like in Egypt. He was born there, and he's raised in Pharaoh's household. He knows what the pain is. He saw it and tried to take control of it and had to run for his life. So now he's got it kind of, I'm out of there. I'm over here, and I'm just, waiting on sheep. And God appears to him. Imagine that. All right? I mean, that alone would freak you out. God shows up and he says, hey, I've heard the misery. I've heard the prayers that all these people are going through. And I'm going to rescue them. So now you go. Now you'd imagine Moses here going, okay. Now the first thing you're thinking, I'm talking to God. All right, now this is like out there. And you got to have a little fear here, but you're thinking, I know what it's like over there. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go. I don't want to take responsibility. And he plays the humble card here. Who am I? That you've chosen me. And a lot of times people just don't want leadership. They don't want to engage. That's right. And Moses is in a tough spot here. And he says, well, how am I going to do this? He says, well, I'll be with you. Well, amen. And this will be the sign that you'll bring him out to this mountain. What kind of sign is that? Wait a minute. That's after the fact. Now, Moses is called to an intense, amazing challenge. 1.5 million people that he's got to lead out. Let's jump down to verse 16. Go assemble the elders of Israel and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, appeared to me and said, I have watched over you and have seen what has been done to you in Egypt. And I have promised to bring you up out of your misery in Egypt into the land of the Canaanites, Hivites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here you got God saying, listen, I've promised this. And Moses, you know what you need to do? You need to be a part of that promise. So wait a minute. I never promised anything. When did I do that? Point number 1, decision time. Decision time. And he's got to make a decision. Am I going to engage in the call to what God has called me to do? Or am I going to rebel? Chapter 4, verse 13. Let's see what happens here.
Come on, bro. Bring it, bro. Come on, bro. Come on, bro.
So they go back and forth. They have a discourse. Well, what if happens this? What happens there? Blah, blah. How do I handle this? Finally, verse 13, Moses said, O Lord, please send someone else to do it. Then the Lord's anger burned against Moses. Finally, this is where his heart's at. Lord, just send someone else. I don't want to do it. Have you ever been there? Yeah. No, we want you to. I don't want to. Watch my lips. I don't want to do this. And God gets ticked off. People don't want responsibility. Why? Because there's a lot of things that go on. We're selfish people. We don't want to suffer. We don't want to put up with the people we're leading. We just, we want to coast. That's our nature. Why? It's going to take time, energy, heart. When they asked Barb and I to lead the church, I said, yes, I'll do it. There's a time I had to make a decision. I said, yes, I'll do it. And I had to give my heart and jump into it. You can't just say yes and kind of slide into this kind of thing. I had to take ownership. The good, the bad, the ugly, that's on me. All right? I can't blame King. It's King's fault. That's why it's not working. Mario's fault. Yeah, he's smiling back there. It's Mario's fault. But it's the good too. And whenever we have people come in here, they look at you, and it says a lot about my leadership. Are you happy? Am I taking control of issues? Am I allowing sin in the camp? Am I rescuing? Am I protecting? What am I doing? Why? Because that's the fruit of my life. Look at Matthew chapter 7. The fruit of my leadership.
This is great, bro.
Matthew 7, verse 15.
Come on, Jay.
Now, the question is, what is the fruit of your leadership? What do you leave behind you? What's in your wake? Matthew 7, verse 15. You guys know what a wake is?
Yeah.
You're in a boat, and there's a wake behind you. All right? What do you leave behind you? Verse 15. Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you'll recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, by their fruit, you will recognize them. That's an intense little passage. And what is Jesus saying here? There is no excuse for bad fruit. It's unacceptable. In fact, it'll be cut down and thrown into the fire. And so there's an expectation. Really, what is he saying? He's saying, listen, you can bear good fruit. You can do this if you want to.
Amen.
If you want to. And what does it take? My marriage is the way it is because of me. That's how I look at it.
That's right.
And I think my marriage is awesome. Right, Barb? Amen. Amen. My kids are awesome. I believe that. And I take responsibility for that. But if my kids aren't doing well, I take responsibility for that too. I'm not going to blame their teachers. I'm not going to blame society. I'm going to do what I got to do. And what does that mean? That means I get advice and I hold to it. I stick to it.
Yeah, come on.
A lot of people get advice and a guy kind of makes it obvious. You ask 10 people, 9 say one thing. It's kind of obvious. And you got to ask the spiritual people, all right? I like that what that one guy said. I like that one. And you ask the advice of those who know what they're doing. You look at their fruit. I'm not going to ask a parent whose kids are obnoxious and out of control about how to raise kids. I'm going to ask those who have done it, who've had success.
Yeah.
And that is how I have good fruit. I've got to go after it. If I don't, it's my fault. It's my fault. And sometimes you got to do the things you don't want to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to follow that advice because it's painful.
Yep.
Well, you reap what you sow. There are times when I've had to do things I did not like to do. In my marriage, I was wrong. Wrong. I was wrong. I'm sorry. And sometimes our pride just gets in there. Please forgive me. And it's learning to humble out, take the direction. Proverbs 15:22, you don't have to turn there. It simply says, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. Proverbs 11 verse 14, for lack of guidance a nation falls, but many advisors make victory sure. Much counsel. Just don't act one or two people. You got to go after this thing. And it's that seeking you'll find. Let's go back to Numbers 11. Actually, first time we're going there. Numbers 11.
Come on, Jay, you're doing awesome.
And look at Moses. We're going to shoot forward about 40 years.
Come on, bro.
Come on, Jay.
Point number 2, giving your heart. Point number 1 was making a decision. Point number 2, giving your heart. Numbers 11, verse 1. All right, now you got 1.5 million people out of Egypt. All right, and you're wandering in the desert. Verse 1, now the people complained about their hardships and the hearing of the Lord, and he heard them. His anger was aroused. Then fire from the Lord burned among them and consumed some of the outskirts of the camp. The people cried out to Moses. He prayed to the Lord, and the fire died down. So the place was called Taberah, because fire from the Lord had burned among them. The rabble, oh, don't you love that? The rabble with them began to crave other food. And again, the Israelites started wailing and said, if only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. Also the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now we have lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna. Okay, so here you got a situation. People are starting to grumble and complain. Have you ever had that? And what happened was they were complaining before because they didn't have any food. So God creates manna. And all manna is, you wake up in the morning, the dew ended up turning into these flakes that they would collect and eat. Cook them and eat. And so now they're complaining. They're saying, hey, listen, we should have gone back. We look back in Egypt and man, we had all this great food. At no cost. Well, of course it was free because you were slaves. You're slaves. And it's amazing how things look better, how our perspective changes when we become ungrateful and whining and complaining. And that's how our people will be, our kids will be.
Yeah.
And see, some people start to look back into the world and they start to say, it was better back then. It's like, no, what are you thinking? You were crying out to the Lord for help, to be rescued. And then there's a tendency to say, I'm not happy now. God says, listen, this is nothing to mess with. And he sends out fire from among them. Fries a few of them. You think they would learn? And they don't do it. Let's jump ahead here. Verse 10. Moses heard the people of every family wailing, each at the entrance to his tent. The Lord became exceedingly angry, and Moses was troubled. He asked the Lord, why have you brought this trouble on your servant? What have I done to displease you that you put the burden of all these people on me? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give them birth? Why do you tell me to carry them in my arms as a nurse carries an infant to the land you promised on oath to their forefathers? Where can I get meat for all these people? They keep wailing to me. Give us meat to eat. I cannot carry all these people by myself. The burden is too heavy for me. If this is how you're going to treat me, put me to death right now. If I have found favor in your eyes, and do not let me face my own ruin. Wow, Moses is going through a few things here. He's feeling the pressure. Now you got to realize, it says these families are wailing at the entrance to their tents. You're talking whole families wailing. You're talking 1.5 million people wailing. Imagine Moses going, what the heck? What did I do?
Yeah.
So Moses looks to God and said, hey, what are you doing to me? Why have you brought this trouble on me? And so he's starting to attack God. Now, no wonder these people complain, because that's what Moses is doing. You see that? People will imitate your leadership. And you can see that he hasn't taken ownership of these people. And he says, did I conceive them? Did I birth all these children? And see, what he's saying is, I don't own them. They're not mine. And he says, why do you tell me to hold them in my arms as a nurse? And you'd see God is working on Moses' heart here to try to get him to take ownership of these people. And Moses to the point where he's like, put me to death right now. I'm done. Have you ever felt that way? Kids are screaming, things are, the bills. It's put me to death right now. We can get overwhelmed. We can feel that way. But it's a total self-focus. There's Moses' mind is all on self. I got it so bad. And he's not thinking about the needs of these people. He's not thinking about how they're feeling. It's all about him. And God's got to get him out of this. In verse 16, the Lord said to Moses, bring me 70 of the Israel's elders, who are known to you as leaders and officials among the people. Then he gives them directives. Hey, I'm going to put my spirit on them, your spirit on them. But what Moses had to learn is you can't do it all. You need help. And sometimes we just don't ask for help. And we can get prideful. I can do this, yes. And you can be the other extreme where you think you can do it all and you end up flat in your face. Are you getting the advice? Are you getting the help? And Moses had to learn what to do. Let's jump ahead, chapter 14. Now, Moses, something's happening to Moses' heart here. Chapter 14, verse 1. That night, all the people of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron. And the whole assembly said to them, if only we had died in Egypt or in this desert. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children would be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to each other, we should choose a leader and go back to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell face down in front of the whole Israelite assembly gathered there. Now, it's taken to another level. You got the whole assembly, all right, grumbling, weeping. And now they're saying it had been better for us to have died in Egypt, died in the desert. Do you see how emotional these people are? How out there they're at? Isn't somebody going to say, hey, we can figure this out. Let's deal with this thing. And then they said, we should choose another leader. All right, now they're questioning his leadership. Have you ever had that happen? Yeah. Bro, you don't know what you're doing. Let's get somebody else to do this. And that's a challenge. Like, wow. No, you need to stay the course here. This is going to work. And see, people want to take control when they get panicked. They just want to deal with that. And somehow Moses has to right the ship here. He's got to deal with it. Let's jump down to verse 10. But the whole assembly talked about stoning them. Oh, okay. Now they want to kill us. Get out of our way. Let's just stone them. Then the glory of the Lord appeared at the tent of meeting to all the Israelites. The Lord said to Moses, how long will these people treat me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe in me? In spite of all the miraculous signs I've performed among them, I will strike them down with a plague and destroy them. But I will make you into a nation greater and stronger than they. All right, now God gets involved. God says, I've had it. I'm going to wipe them out. Now, would God do that? Absolutely. He did it already once, Noah's Ark. And he's saying, I've had it. I'm done with these people. How long will they refuse to believe in me? And you look at God and say, listen, I do miracles, and they don't believe. And see, for us, God is doing miracles all over the place. Think about how we have changed. How God has rescued us. How God has given us hope and freedom from guilt and all sorts of things. And you see, miracles happen in people that transform in the church. So encouraged. Roger was here. I shared about this last week. He said, man, it's amazing to see these people mature. And all the young people that are growing up and taking on the responsibilities.
Come on.
But sometimes we lack faith. And it bothers God. And God says, how long are you going to be faithless? Should I destroy you? How long am I going to put up with you? Now you imagine Moses going, oh, wow. What do I do now? Look at verse 13. Moses said to the Lord, then the Egyptians will hear about it. By your power, you brought these people up from among them. And they will tell the inhabitants of this land about it. They have already heard that you, O Lord, are with these people, and that you, O Lord, have been seen face to face, and that your cloud stays over them, and that you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. If you put these people to death, all at one time, the nations who have heard this report about you will say, the Lord was not able to bring these people into the land he promised them on oath. So he slaughtered them in the desert. Now may the Lord's strength be displayed just as you have declared. The Lord is slow to anger, abounding in love, and forgiving sin and rebellion. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children for the sin of the fathers to the third and fourth generation. In accordance with your great love, forgive the sin of these people, just as you have pardoned them from the time they left Egypt until now. The Lord replied, I have forgiven them as you have asked. Wow, you can see a huge difference in Moses here.
Yeah.
They're about ready to stone him. And God says, I'm going to fry him. You know, I've had it. And Moses, all of a sudden, engages. And he becomes the mediator. He said, wait a minute, God. Well, hold on. This is not the same Moses that we read about earlier.
Yeah.
He's saying, God, remember that the people will hear this and, hey, you know, you said, and they'll say you weren't able to do it. Now Moses is throwing it out there. And he says, God, forgive them. Forgive them. That's what a leader does. A leader prays for the people. A leader is involved and has those prayers to God. Please change their lives. Change the situation. And you begin to see Moses' heart feel for the people. And, you know, I look at this and I wonder, did God just do this to test Moses' heart? To see, what are you going to do? I've had it, this and that. To see how Moses would respond. And he starts to take ownership.
Yeah.
But here's the question. Do you have a heart for your people? Do you take ownership? For your Bible talk?
Come on, bro.
For the church? Or is your attitude, wow, that's really bad over there. I hope someone does something about it. You're someone. You do something about it.
Come on, bro.
And see, that's engaging in the battle here. Now you guys got to remember, hey, we're leaving and a bunch of people are coming. Are you going to step up? Are you going to decide to fill the gap? Are you going to decide to give your heart to whatever responsibility that you're called to do? Somebody tap you on the shoulder. What is your response?
Come on, bro.
Do you take responsibility for Chicago?
Come on.
Do you own it? Or is that somebody else's problem? Is that how God feels?
Come on, bro.
And see, sometimes we don't think on that level. That's my problem out there. That's why I share my faith.
Come on, bro.
That's why we continue to get in there. Imagine if everybody in Chicago took ownership for Chicago.
Yeah, come on.
What would this be like? It would radically change it. Well, that's what we're doing. One by one, we're calling people to take responsibility to make disciples of all nations. That's why we're here. That's our purpose. And it's a one-on-one thing. You change hearts one-on-one. Look in John chapter 10. John chapter 10. Now you got to realize God is working on your heart, just as He did with Moses.
Yeah.
Come on.
And He's testing your heart. Do you feel what I feel for the people? John chapter 10, verse 11. This is Jesus. He says, I am the good shepherd. Good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Hired hand is not the shepherd who owns the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he's a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me and I know the Father. I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of the sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice. And there shall be one flock, one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down, authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. Here's the question. Are you the good shepherd, or are you just a hired hand?
Come on.
Are you just doing a job?
Preach, bro.
Check. Oh, I took care of this call. Check. I went and dropped this food off for this person who's check. That's not the Spirit. Because when the wolves come, and they will come,
Yeah.
are you just going to drop everything and run? Or are you going to engage in the battle?
Come on. Come on, Dave.
How do you know? How do you know where you're at? Are you the good shepherd or the hired? How do you know? Well, he tells us here a few things. First thing is, are you a protector? Do you protect the sheep? Sheep do dumb things. We do dumb things. Trust me, we do a lot of dumb things, and all of you could write a list of all the dumb things you've done. And people have loved you in spite of it. Amen? Do you protect your people? There's a lot of ways of protecting. You teach them.
Come on.
You train them. Don't do that or you'll get hurt.
Come on.
Or is it just, well, I don't disciple them, so not my problem. Yeah, it is your problem. I'm your problem. You know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm your problem. Mary's your problem. Yeah, you're looking at Mary's your problem. Gabby's your problem. Yeah. That's how you got to look at it.
Come on.
But when Gabby succeeds, that's on us too. Are you a hired hand? Well, then protect each other. Take care of each other. Be there for one to help, because when the wolf comes, we got to be there. There's going to be persecution. That's just how it is. I get persecuted all the time.
Yeah.
You challenge people on sin. They don't like that. But if you're going to love them, you'll challenge them in love. The goal is to help people to change. Imagine if somebody didn't challenge you on your sin. Where would you be today? That's protecting you. Because if you don't deal with certain things, what ends up happening? You can destroy yourself. You don't change. You do damage to you and other people. We got to train people. We got to teach people. People have character issues. People have pride. You guys have any pride? Yeah. You got to teach people to be disciplined. It's amazing how many people just don't pay their bills. You didn't pay it? No, I didn't have money. I didn't pay it. Well, do you know what that does? And see, people aren't trained to take responsibility for their life. The other thing is you care for them. Jesus says, hey, I care for my sheep. They know it. Do you care about how people feel? A lot of times how people feel and what are truth are totally different. All right, you got 1.5 million people wailing. Well, what are they feeling? And it's engaging in that to help them. What they feel is what's true for them now. And that's where you need to go. And then you inspire them out of it. You help them. It's not that bad. Look at, we can deal with this. And people are hurting everywhere you want to be. Take responsibility. Change them. The other thing is, do you know them? Jesus says, my sheep know me and I know them. Do you know each other? That means you got to get into these talks that go a little deeper than, hey, how are the Bears going to do?
Come on, bro. That's right. That's right.
You know what I mean? And if that's the only conversation we have out here, we're in trouble. But do you open up about your struggles, about the sin in your life? And do you draw people out? Do you talk about your life? What you've done? And it's just getting to know people. Talk to them about their past. Talk to them about their fears, their concerns, what they like to do. Get to know them. The next thing is, do you listen? Jesus says they listen to my voice. All right, why? Because they trust. Have you built a trust with the people around you? I believe that you're concerned, that you're genuine, and that you care about me. And so I'm going to listen to what you have to say.
Wow.
That should be the kind of relationships we have. That's the good shepherd. Hired hand doesn't care. Hired hand goes through the motions. And finally, do you lay down your life? Do you sacrifice for one another? Do you suffer? Do you give up your time, your money, your energy?
Come on, bro.
Are you willing to feel what people feel? Are you willing to engage in the pain that they're going through? That's what the Good Shepherd does. Do you do the late nights and the early mornings
Come on, bro.
to help rescue them? And it just comes down to loving people. This church needs to continue to grow in this. I believe this church is amazing, but we got a lot of work to do.
Come on.
Now, Barb and I are going to Queens, like I said. There's going to be a lot to do here. Are you willing to stand in the gap?
Come on, bro.
Take responsibility. Oh, I don't know how to do it. Well, join the ranks. Learn how. Engage in it. Here am I, send me mentality. Now, hopefully you feel loved by me. Hopefully you feel loved by Barb.
Come on, bro.
If you don't, I want you to talk to me. I don't want there to be an awkwardness or anything. If I've done something, I want to deal with it. That's on me. I need to be open to that. And so do you. There's some people come to the church just to take. That's the way it is. It's always been that way, always will be. See the church, it's an awesome group. These people have fun, they love each other, they're united.
Yeah, that's right.
They're goofy, but they do it. Some strange people in this group, but boy, they have fun. So what? Are we getting into their lives? Are we transforming? Are we taking it from, we're just a fun group, to we are taking responsibility for people's lives? If you're a hired hand, you scare me. You scare me. You need to deal with it. What does it say in Matthew 7? We just read it. What happens to a bad tree? Cut down, thrown in the fire and burned. Jesus' expectation is it's unacceptable to be a hired hand. You need to bear good fruit. That's just the way it is. And this is how you do it. You take responsibility.
Yeah.
And you give your heart to it. That's what we need to be. And if I see you this way, I am not going to be afraid to challenge you. I'm going to go after you.
Come on.
I take responsibility for that. I'm serious about it. And don't you dare pull other people down. Don't you allow your selfishness to pull others down, to become like that. Oh, it's okay. They're selfish. It must be acceptable. No, it's not. And I don't want to be the only one doing that. We are called to love no matter what. You will reap what you sow.
That's right.
People will suffer because of you. Well, not while I'm here. As much as I can do, that's what I'm going to do.
Come on.
Amen. Come on, bro.
And you see me being selfish, you need to challenge me too. It goes for us all. I don't care. We're a team. We're working together.
Come on, Jay.
Now, there's people in here that are amazing when it comes to this spirit, who grab a hold of things and they do things without being asked.
Amen. That's awesome.
I think Kathy Borozik is a huge example of this. She's amazing. I don't even need to talk about it. You know what I'm talking about. She sees a problem, she goes after it. Imagine if everybody had that spirit. I appreciate the shepherds, and hopefully you do. Shepherds in our group. I think about Fabian and Vicky. Man, they go in there and they try to help. Late nights, early mornings, whatever they got to do. There's a spirit of care and concern. I think of the Woodens. They're awesome. It's not a little weird humor, but other than that, and we pray about that. I think of Tom Sperling. How many times does Tom help people moving and behind the scene things? It's amazing. Christine Feldman. Christine's a great example. She's kind of in the shepherd's role, but she's also taken on the administrative role. That is huge.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
She hasn't lost her marbles yet. Thanks to Portia. But people are stepping up. Theo Leslie. Incredible heart. Bob and Barb. Dave and Bernie. There's so many. I could go on and on and on. But could I say your name here? That's who you're known to be.
Come on, Jay.
Proud of this church. But we always got to be taking it higher. We got a lot of new people. Got to learn the Spirit. I'm going to close with a challenge.
Come on, Jay.
Decide to give your heart to whatever responsibility is brought upon you. There's a lot of needs. You're going to be called on somehow, some way. Decide to give your heart to it. Question is, are you a hired hand or are you a good shepherd? And you can tell by the fruit of your life, the wake that's behind you. And the challenge is to talk to people. Find out, what do you see in my life? Does that define me? Do these things, am I a protector? Do I give my heart to the needs? Do people listen to me? Am I the person who's willing to protect and give and suffer and sacrifice? And remember, when you're asked to step up for any form, remember this lesson, because it's going to happen. And I'm asking you to give your heart to it. And to God be the glory. Amen.